No one's explained why it's our responsibility as Americans to facilitate the sexual activities of people in foreign countries. I mean, it's crazy. There's a little bit of good news that materialized in Washington late last night, or at least it seemed that way at first. In a 51-50 vote with J.D. Vance breaking the tie, the Senate voted to advance a bill that would slash roughly $9 billion in federal spending on everything from foreign aid to public broadcasting. It's a good start, although, of course, it doesn't go far enough. Obviously, we should eliminate all funding to propaganda outlets like NPR and PBS, along with all of our funding for foreign countries. Foreign aid, in every case, is either a fraud on the American taxpayer or a way to launder money to intelligence agencies. Most of the time, it's both. But even in the absence of a total suspension of wasteful spending, which will probably never happen in our lifetime, the bill that advanced in the Senate yesterday was still fairly encouraging. But there were some unfortunate 11th hour changes to the bill. Turns out that several very important spending cuts were eliminated at the last minute. And we can learn a bit about how Washington works if we look at some of these cuts in detail. Additionally, if you can believe it, some brand new wasteful spending was actually added to the legislation for the benefit of something called Native American radio stations. Yes, they added pork to the big pork cutting bill. We cut funding for NPR, but we added millions of dollars in funding for something called Native American Radio. Watch.
So let's look at where this rescissions package we've been talking about stands right now. So originally the proposal was for $9.4 billion with a B cuts overall. But now senators have drawn a line and it has been reduced. Now the cut proposal is expected to be $9 billion. What has changed? Well, cuts have been restored, $400 million with an M in health, global health funding, and especially that includes PEPFAR, which of course is a global AIDS, HIV prevention and treatment program. Now, in addition to this, I want to make one smaller note. The White House also pledged a very small amount, relatively $9 million, for Native American radio stations. Why does that matter? They did that to win a vote. It is the vote of this man, Senator Mike Rounds of South Dakota.
Mike Rounds is a Republican. He represents South Dakota in the Senate, and apparently, according to this reporting, he demanded nearly $10 million in spending on Native American radio stations in order to win his vote for this bill. Again, he demanded a payout for radio stations in order to vote for a bill that would cut wasteful spending on radio stations, which is corruption, obviously. But his corruption made me want to answer a pretty basic question, which is, what exactly is a Native American radio station? What kind of earth-shattering content are they putting out? And how exactly does it benefit the United States? To answer that question, I went on something of an internet safari, and here's what I found.
Tonight, we're taking you inside a one-of-a-kind radio station that's indigenizing the airwaves. The Daybreak Star Radio Network launched just last summer here in Seattle.
It's elevating native music from the Pacific Northwest and all over the world. Cairo 7's Graham Johnson introduces us to some of the people behind this groundbreaking effort.
And you're listening to DJ Big Rez on DaybreakStarRadio.com.
DJ Big Rez is David Hilaire.
The salmon will run, the Mauna will breathe, the rivers will flow.
A longtime DJ from the Lummi Nation, Big Rez is now heard around the world on the Daybreak Star Radio Network.
Stand up with the First Nations and our people that been living here for thousands of years. Stand up.
To have a whole radio station just dedicated to indigenous people, Native Americans, is monumental, I think.
You heard it straight from the source. Big Rez is indigenizing the airwaves. He's elevating native music. It's a groundbreaking effort. It's a really monumental development. This is the kind of innovation that apparently is worth subsidizing to the tune of $10 million. But I have to confess that upon listening to that segment, I wasn't impressed with the brief excerpts of content that they played from the radio station. So I went looking for something slightly longer, examples of what Native American radio is bringing to listeners in America. Here's one of the songs that they're constantly replaying, apparently.
They call it a pipeline, but those on the front lines know that black snake was sent for us to grow, to shed the skin our ancestors pray, of wounds old and calloused, so that we may stay, so that we may unite, unity our tool.
Stand up with the First Nations and our people that been living here for thousands of years. Stand up. We've been fighting for our freedom since the Nina and the Pinta and the Santa Maria. Stand up. Like Geronimo, Sitting Bull, Red Cloud, Crazy Horse, Leonard Peltier. Stand up. Now they poisoning the waters for our sons and our daughters, so we on the frontier. We won. One nation, one cause, one people, one tribe. Now it's us against the pipeline.
So there's the claim there that the pipelines are poisoning the water, which they repeat constantly throughout the song. It's a pretty great lyric, at least if you like lyrics that sound exactly like talking points from a Bernie Sanders stump speech. Then there's my favorite line, quote, "We've been fighting for our freedom since the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria." In other words, until Christopher Columbus arrived, so-called native people never once had to fight for their freedoms. All the beheadings and tribal warfare were just par for the course. From Congress to your children's schools, there is a cultural war raging across America. For the moms watching, I don't have to tell you this, you're living it. I want to make you aware of Concerned Women for America, the nation's largest public policy Christian women's organization. For 45 years, they've been leading the charge as your voice in all levels of public policy. CWA focuses on core issues, a lot of issues I talk about all the time: family, sanctity of life, religious liberty, so many important issues. CWA knows what a woman is. CWA trains women to become grassroots leaders, speak into the culture, pray, testify, and lobby. From their Young Women for America collegiate chapters to moms, professionals, and mature women, they're the most influential women's organization in our nation. The issues they confront are not going away, and this is your chance to step in, speak up, and shape what your daughters will inherit. CWA is here for that moment, and they help women like you turn conviction into clarity, clarity into action. I'm asking you to support their efforts today. For a donation of $20 or more, you'll get a copy of their new book written by the CEO and president, Penny Nance, A Women's Guide, 7 Rules for Success in Business and Life. This book's an incredible gift for any young woman graduating or beginning her professional journey, or any woman at all. Go to concernedwomen.org/Walsh for your copy today. Again, that's concernedwomen.org/Walsh. But the moment Christopher Columbus arrived, all of a sudden they had to fight for their freedoms, and they're still fighting to this day. Yes, they have the freedom to still steal millions of dollars from American taxpayers. Yes, they have literally every other right that every other American has, but according to this song, which, as anyone with ears will attest, is as dreadful and embarrassing as a musical composition could possibly be, the Indians are still fighting for their freedoms to this day. And so this is the kind of garbage that we're still funding. So if anyone ever tells you irony is dead, tune your radio to Big Rez as he indigenizes the airwaves. But as disgraceful as this display is, it's actually not the worst of it. As you heard in that report, we also restored funding to AIDS prevention programs overseas, even though those programs were originally supposed to be cut. Here's the Daily Wire's reporting of what happened. Quote, a senior administration official told the Daily Wire that cuts to PEPFAR, global health funding provided by the United States to combat AIDS and HIV, were not impacting essential life-saving services. America remains the most generous country in the world because President Trump has a humanitarian heart, and we urge other nations to dramatically increase their humanitarian efforts, the official told the Daily Wire. Official comments come as some media outlets, such as NPR, have claimed the Trump administration is gutting AIDS relief. So we're assured that Donald Trump has a humanitarian heart, and therefore we need to continue spending millions of dollars on AIDS prevention in Africa, which raises the question, which I think many people, although we always hear about AIDS prevention efforts in Africa, the question is, what does AIDS prevention look like exactly? Here's how one activist describes the benefits of these programs. Watch.
Winnie, you say that the risks are huge. Can you put that in very real, practical terms? What exactly does that mean?
Absolutely. What we see now is that many clinics have been shut, workers have been laid off, and communities who had contracts to serve their own people in communities, contracts were closed. So now we see in many places fewer people showing up for a test, fewer people coming to get what they need for prevention, like PrEP or condoms. And so we see new infections rising.
So she's saying that America needs to continue paying for PrEP and condoms overseas, or else a lot of people will die. But actually, there's a much simpler solution here. The only people who need to take PrEP and wear condoms in order to avoid contracting HIV are people who are engaging in sexual activities that are likely to infect them with HIV. In other words, we're talking mostly about promiscuous gay men. I mean, all that's needed in reality is for these promiscuous gay men to stop behaving that way. That's the solution. That's how they can avoid contracting HIV. We don't have to send them $1. They can do it for free, or not do it, as the case may be. The thing is, no one at any point, and this is another controversial yeah, I mean, this is seen as like greatly. It's well, to question AIDS relief in Africa. Who would do that? You have to be a very cruel person. And yet, no one at any point has explained exactly why it's our duty as Americans to pay for the PrEP and condoms that are used by foreigners who voluntarily engage in extremely dangerous sexual activities. No one's explained why it's our responsibility as Americans to facilitate the sexual activities of people in foreign countries. I mean, it's crazy. No one has answered this simple question. Why shouldn't we cut AIDS funding for Africa and every other country on the planet? Why exactly are American families held responsible to pay for HIV treatment for Africans, especially preventative treatments, which are designed so that these people can have risky sex without any fear of consequences? It's a question. It's not even a rhetorical. Why is it, you think about just any American family in Ohio somewhere sitting down for dinner, and if you think that we need to have AIDS funding in Africa and other parts of the world, what you're saying is that family, because that's where the money comes from, you're saying that family has an obligation to make sure that gay Africans don't get AIDS. Why? Why does that family have that obligation? Says who? Well, the answer to the question is pretty obvious, that we shouldn't pay for any of this. It says Useless is subsidizing Big Rez while he spins up indigenous remixes about pipelines and Christopher Columbus. We elected Republicans so that they'd cut spending on anything that doesn't benefit American citizens. And while there were useful cuts in the bill yesterday, there is still a lot more to be done. And that is why funding for Native American radio and AIDS prevention in Africa is all today, or should be anyway, canceled. If you'd like to see what else I have to say, you can access my full show by going to dailywire.com or by going to the Matt Walsh Show Twitter page. Hope to see you there. Godspeed.